Hi everyone, Father Lamb here. It's Wednesday again, Wednesday, September 27th. And last few days, as you know, it's been kind of dreary out. The weather's been kind of yucky. And that does sometimes affect our behavior, doesn't it? You wake up in a morning and it's like really bright out and a beautiful day. You're like, wow, it's great to be alive. And after a few dreary days in a row, you're thinking, oh man, this is depressing. But sometimes the spiritual life is like that. Sometimes the spiritual life is like walking in clouds. It's kind of dull. It's kind of like dreary out. And in those days, it's really important for us to stay with the basics. Maybe that's the theme today. Stay with the basics. Am I doing the basics in my prayer life? Am I finding time each day for real prayer, time with God? Or am I getting too busy? If I'm too busy to pray, I'm too busy. So it's time to make a little change. Am I receiving the sacraments? When was the last time I got to confession? The sacraments are these avenues of grace, how Christ wants to come to us, and often we don't take advantage of them. Am I receiving the Eucharist with devotion? If you've gotten away from Mass, it's time to get back to church. I was kind of surprised, I must say, recently. Somebody was questioning me about the Sunday obligation to go to Mass. A lot of people don't go to church today, and they really thought, well, there's really nothing in the Bible about it. And I'm thinking, what? So anyway, where does it say we have to go to church? Well, it's been part of the church's tradition for, a couple thousand years. But you can go all the way back to the Old Testament, to the commandments, where Jesus said, God said to Moses, keep holy the Sabbath day. And keeping holy the Sabbath means, we don't work, we find some time for family, but it also means going to church. And also that's been part of the tradition since the early Christian church. It just changed from the Sabbath being Saturday, where the Jews celebrated the Sabbath, till Sunday, because that's when Jesus rose from the dead. So Sunday's the Lord's Day, and the day of rest, and the day for us to go to church. And also in the scriptures, Jesus at the Last Supper, when he gave us his very body and blood, soul, and divinity, he said, take this, all of you, and eat, take and drink. Do this in memory of me. And not like do it when you feel like it, do it in memory of me. I'm not trying to say this to make anybody feel guilty, but the truth is sometimes we don't know what's good for us, and we can get lazy. We can walk through the dreariness of life, and we got to get back to the basics. And so it's good that we have the obligation to go to church, because it pushes us to get there, because God has a message for us every time we come to church. Think about that. Every time you come to Mass, God wants to touch your heart. It might be in the reading, might be in the homily, it might be in a song that's sung, it might be in a conversation going into Mass or coming out of Mass with somebody. God wants to touch your heart. And if we really believe that God has a message for us at every Mass, we would not want to miss Mass. What's God going to say to me today? And if I stay home, just read the newspaper, drinking my coffee, I'm going to miss that message from God and just get into the busyness and the ordinariness of secular life. If you've gotten away from church, it's time to get back. Okay, it's time. It's not enough just to watch the Mass on TV. It's great to do that, and if you're a shut-in and you can't make it, it's wonderful, and that's why we keep televising them. But if you're able-bodied, you can get to church. It's time to get back to Mass. And I don't say that to make you feel guilty, because that's what's really good for our heart. We need to receive Jesus himself. What an incredible gift that we receive our God, body, blood, soul, and divinity, every time we come to Mass. Talk about an incredible thing. We need to enter into that mystery more deeply so we appreciate the gift that Christ wants to give us through the sacraments. This week, let's stay with the basics. Take a look at your prayer life. Am I beginning and ending my day with prayer? And am I stopping during the day and finding some time with God? Just a couple minutes, maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes. You connect with God after lunch. I sometimes say, well, I'm too busy. No. You can take 2 minutes after lunch and say, how did my morning go? Am I still connected to Christ? And if I screwed up, okay, let's ask for forgiveness, let's move on. But if I don't pray until the end of the day, then what's going to happen is I'm going to get all jammed up, and all of a sudden I wonder why I have a temper going on inside, my feelings are all crazy, and I'm not thinking straight. Take time during the day to stop periodically and just say a little prayer, Hail Mary and Our Father, a little connection to Christ. Am I receiving the sacraments? Am I getting to confession? Am I receiving the Eucharist? Open ourselves up to these avenues of grace that God has given to us. And lastly, do you have a spiritual friend you can talk to? Nobody walks the spiritual road alone. We need each other. You have somebody else We can support each other. Someone who challenges you to get to Mass and say your prayers. What a gift from God to have a spiritual friend like that. This week, keep it simple. Am I doing the basics of my faith so that I can grow closer to Jesus Christ? God bless you.